Far beyond the horizon, small machines skimmed the waves, silent and unseen. They had no pilots, no mercy, only one mission.
We are in the operation area. We are going at it with patrol and so on.
In minutes, they would face one of the most powerful warships on Earth. The Red Sea lay still under a dark, empty sky, hiding their approach. On its surface, the USS Harry S. Truman floated like a steel city, her crew unaware of what was coming. Deep inside her hull, time was running out.
It is actually the eyeball Mark 1. That's a primary sensor.
And when the moment came, the quiet night would break, and nothing on board would feel the same again. The first signs of the swarm. It began with a faint blip on the radar. At first, the crew thought it might be seabirds or a trick of the signal. The sea often played such games. But then the dots moved faster. They changed direction sharply, something no bird could do. The radar operators called it in. Within seconds, the calm routine on the bridge turned into focused urgency. Orders were given. Communications lit up across the fleet. The approaching objects were closing the distance quickly, far faster than expected. Trained eyes recognized the pattern. Small, fast drones, the kind designed to crash into their targets and explode. Somewhere in the darkness, dozens of them were racing toward the Truman and her escorts. Every sailor understood what that meant. These drones might be cheap, but they are dangerous. One hit in the wrong place could cause chaos. Alarms began to sound. The ship's crew moved to battle stations. On the deck, weapon systems powered up. In the air, the night was still quiet, but everyone knew the fight was already on its way. Layered defense awakens. The first response came from the destroyers sailing alongside the Truman. Their radar screens glowed as they locked onto the incoming drones. In moments, surface-to-air missiles roared into the night. Each one streaked high above the water before diving toward its target. Some drones vanished in flashes of light, pieces falling into the dark sea below. But the swarm kept coming. The remaining drones flew low, skimming just above the waves to hide from radar. That was when the second line of defense took over. The Truman's close-in weapon systems came alive, their rotating barrels spitting thousands of rounds every minute. The sound was deafening, the bursts of fire lighting up the deck. Some drones were shredded instantly, breaking apart in mid-air. Others slipped through, weaving between layers of gunfire. For them, another trap waited. Agile interceptor missiles launched from both the carrier and the destroyers. They found their marks with deadly precision, sending fireballs into the sea spray. Above the fleet, electronic warfare aircraft circled. They flooded the airwaves with signals, confusing the drones' controls. Some lost contact with their operators and spiraled helplessly into the water. From missile strikes to electronic jamming, every layer of defense worked together. In the darkness, the swarm began to thin, but it was not over yet. The drone that got too close. One of the drones slipped past the last line of fire. It hugged the surface of the water, moving too fast and too low for the guns to track in time. By the time it was spotted, it was almost at Truman's side. The crew braced themselves. A bright flash lit the waves as the drone exploded just short of the hull. The blast sent a shock wave through the water, making the massive carrier shudder. Loose equipment rattled. Some sailors gripped whatever they could to keep their balance. The damage was minor. The thick steel of the Truman's hull had held firm. But everyone on board understood what had just happened. A small, cheap machine had come close enough to touch a vessel built to project power across the globe. In that moment, the threat felt real in a way no training exercise ever could. The message was clear. Technology had changed the rules of the game. And even the most powerful ships were no longer untouchable. The enemy had drawn first blood, even without sinking a single ship. Now, it was America's turn to answer. The urgent call to strike back. The moment the danger passed, senior officers gathered in the carrier's command center. Screens glowed with live maps, radar feeds, and satellite images. Reports came in from the escorts and patrol aircraft. The source of the attack was no longer a mystery. The drones had been launched from positions deep inside northern Yemen. Messages moved quickly up the chain of command. Within hours, Washington was fully briefed. At the Pentagon, top military leaders joined with U.S. Central Command officers to decide the next step.
Every day there's new threats this country faces, and there's always new challenges.
There was no debate about whether to respond, only how. The orders were clear. The strike would be fast, precise, and strong enough to leave no doubt. Targets were identified: drone hangars, storage depots, and command centers. Intelligence teams worked around the clock to confirm every location, making sure civilians were nowhere near the strike zones. By the end of the day, the operation had a name, a flight plan, and a timetable. The Truman's deck crews began preparing aircraft. Missiles were loaded. Pilots were briefed. The attack had started in the dark. The answer would come in the dark as well, and it would be impossible to ignore. Operation Retaliation begins. Night had fallen again when the first engines roared to life. On the Truman's deck, FA-18E Super Hornets lined up under dim red lights, their pilots ready for launch. One by one, they thundered into the sky, carrying missiles and bombs meant for targets hundreds of miles away. They were not alone. EA-18G Growlers followed close behind, their mission to blind enemy radar and block communications. Above them, E-2D Hawkeyes circled, scanning the skies and seas to ensure no surprise would catch the strike group off guard. Far offshore, destroyers waited for the signal. When it came, Tomahawk cruise missiles rose from their launch tubes and disappeared into the night, heading for radar sites, storage bunkers, and airstrips used for drone launches. Each strike was timed so that different waves of firepower would hit almost together, overwhelming any defense. From the desert, the deep rumble of B-1B Lancer bombers joined the attack. Flying in from a base in Qatar, they dropped precision-guided bombs on fortified positions buried in the mountains. Beneath the surface, a silent player moved. A Virginia-class submarine launched its Tomahawks, hitting hidden depots and supply routes. Every shot was planned, every target was chosen, and in less than an hour, the first phase of retaliation had begun to change the night sky over northern Yemen into flashes of fire. The power of non-kinetic warfare. Not every part of the operation relied on explosions. Some of the most effective strikes left no smoke in the sky at all. From the decks of the escorting destroyers, advanced electronic warfare systems went to work. These systems sent powerful signals that jammed the drones' control links. Without commands from their operators, many aircraft simply drifted off course or fell into the sea. No missiles were needed. No ammunition was spent. This approach saved resources and reduced the risk of stray fire. It also showed a new way to fight, one where disrupting the enemy's brain could be just as deadly as destroying its body. In the months ahead, these tactics would become more important. But on this night, they added another layer to an attack already designed to send a message no one could misunderstand. The aftermath and silence over the Red Sea. By dawn, the strikes had done their work. Satellite images showed smoking craters where storage hangars once stood. Runways were cracked and useless. Command centers were reduced to rubble. In the hours that followed, no new drones appeared over the Red Sea. Patrol aircraft scanned the skies, but there was nothing, only empty air and calm waters. For the crews aboard the Truman and her escorts, the tension began to ease. The immediate threat was gone, at least for now, but no one saw it as an ending. Everyone knew the Houthis would try again someday. Still, this pause mattered. It gave the fleet time to prepare, to study the fight, and to make sure the next swarm would be met with even stronger defenses. The strategic message to the world. The strikes were more than a military answer. They were a signal. Across the globe, allies and rivals were watching to see how the United States would react When one of its most powerful ships was tested, the message was clear. Any attack on a U.S. carrier would bring a swift and overwhelming reply. It didn't matter if the threat came from a nation or a small armed group. The response would be the same, decisive and precise. For countries that depend on safe sea routes, the operation was a reassurance. The Red Sea is one of the world's busiest waterways, carrying oil, goods, and food between continents. A single disruption here can ripple through markets everywhere. By removing the threat quickly, the U.S. had protected not only its forces, but also global trade. For adversaries, the lesson was sharp. The Navy had shown that it could combine missiles, aircraft, submarines, and electronic warfare into one coordinated strike. And it could do it in hours, not days. The night's events proved that even in an age of cheap drones and fast-moving threats, America's ability to project power was intact. The Truman had been challenged, but the answer left no doubt. The seas would remain open, and the carrier would continue her watch. The attack faded into history, but for those who were there, it would never be just another mission. They had seen how quickly calm seas could turn dangerous, and how every second mattered when lives and ships were at risk. The Truman sailed on, her decks busy once more, her crew carrying the memory of that night. Somewhere out there, threats would rise again. But the lesson was clear. Readiness was the greatest weapon. In the quiet after the storm, the carrier remained what she had always been, a watchful guardian on a restless sea.